Hello all, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with a model showcase video of this 1/6 scale late production M10 tank destroyer. This model was custom made for a private collector and has just been completed. In this video, we will discuss the model's details and its various special features. At first glance, we notice that the model is completely unweathered. This was built per the customer specs. And the model also features a complete detailed fighting compartment and hull interior, which we will get to later on in the video. This model here started as a rotomold plastic M10 hull and turret from Plastic Panzers. And besides the completed model, we could see what the original kit looked like. This kit here, this hull here and turret, are the exact same type of kit that this model here started out as. Just to get a perspective of how much work and how much the model has changed from start to finish. As I mentioned earlier, the hull and turret are made out of material called rotomolded plastic. For those who don't know, rotomolded plastic gets its name from the way the material is molded. The way these models are casted, as we can see here, just some powder falling out of the turret, is that you have a mold and they shovel this fine plastic powder into the mold. The mold is then heated and is spun. The powder melts and turns into a liquid or a goo. When the mold is spinning, the molten plastic attracts to the sides of the mold via centrifugal force. When the mold is cooled, the plastic hardens and you get the shape of the interior of the mold, which in this case is the shape of a tank. The material itself is actually very durable, as I've shown in a previous video. The material is practically indestructible. I could throw it on the floor and you'll see no damage done to this turret whatsoever. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to do that with the finished model, but it's just to get an example of the material's durability. The model itself has lots of molded-in details, all of which are removed when I start working on the conversion. One positive attribute that this kit has is that the kits themselves are relatively lightweight. The empty hull weighs about 20 pounds, and the turret weighs less than 1, unfinished of course. The kit itself was designed to be that of a late production M10 tank destroyer. What signifies the late production as opposed to the earlier productions is the rear position of the turret. On the late production M10s, had two very large counterweights fitted to the rear portion of the hull. Earlier versions of the M10 had a different shape to the rear here. On the earlier production and mid-production, the M10 turret angled this way. And because of that, it had two smaller counterweights mounted on the rear. On the late production, they adjusted the angle to fit the two larger duckbill type counterweights. Another feature that the kit has molded in is the tank's armored roof. Pretty much all World War II U.S. tank destroyers had an open top. Because of this, they were vulnerable to fragmentation and other types of small arms fire. Because of that, field modification was added to M36s and the M10s, which was that of an armored roof with two hatches here. It was made out of rough cut steel and was welded on in the field. I never used these shields on my own models personally. I always cut them off. That way you get the full view of the turret interior. To transform the model from its raw kit form to the way you see it now took approximately 6 months. And to do this, I use all of the components that are found on the EastCoastArmory.com product line, as well as a few other parts from Panzerworks. To start with the model suspension, the model features the EastCoastArmory.com functional VVSS suspension, The suspension is full function and has real springs in it. The model also features the EastCoastArmory.com rear idler wheel and adjustable rear idler mounts. The track tension can be adjusted by moving the swing plate as you would on the actual Sherman tank. The tank's track is the Resin Set T66 steel 3-bar cleat. This is another component found on the EastCoastArmory.com product line, and the track links are functional. This model will roll if you push it. The sprockets that you see here are Panzerwerk, as well as the model's final drives are also Panzerwerk. The transmission cover has been rebuilt and resculpted. The Zerk fittings on the main idler wheel, road wheels, and return rollers are all painted in red. This is a standard procedure done on most heavy vehicles. The M10's design was unique in that the hull has this integral side skirt mounted to the sponson. Unlike the Sherman, the Chaffee, or even the Pershing, where the side skirt would be bolted on as an afterfact, the M10's hull design had this feature integral. On the real M10, it would be a piece of sheet metal that was welded to the top portion here via this overlapping section, and on the interior would have vertical braces that would connect the sponson to the sand skirt. This design and feature is unique solely to the M10 and M36 series of vehicles. Moving on, the model has its signature M10 sheet metal front fenders. These fenders are exclusively found on the M10 Tank Destroyer and M36 Jackson. They hinge upward and are all fabricated out of sheet metal. Moving up, we could see the headlights with clear resin lenses, as well as the sheet metal brush guards. Again, all these components are found on EastCoastArmory.com, as well as the front lift hook and the armored nubs. On the real M10 Tank Destroyer, the design was to have applicant armor be able to bolt onto the sides and front of the vehicle. However, that feature never really made it off the drawing board and off the prototype phase and was never implemented in combat. However, the tank kept these armored nubs hardpoint positions all the way up into the end of its production run. Moving towards the sides of the vehicle, we have here the MP48 spring antenna base. We have the first aid kit with the first aid kit mounted inside. And on the back portion here, we have the brass track rouser racks. These racks were very commonly found on M10s and M36s and would bolt directly to the tank's armored hardpoints. Since the client specified that he wanted to weather the vehicle on his own, I made the track rousers, the resin track rousers, glue on. They would be mounted in a zigzag pattern that you see here. On the real M10, the track rousers would mount to these little holes that you see here positioned on the racks. The racks themselves are a recent addition to the EastCoastArmory.com product line. Moving our way to the rear of the vehicle, we have all the Pioneer tools. It's the sledge, shovel, the pickaxe handle, pickaxe head, crowbar, axe, and large wrench. On the lower portion here, we have the tank's tow panel, tow hitch extended, tow hitch mount. As we discussed earlier, the idler mounts. And on the rear port here, this is the tank's exhaust manifold system. The M10 used the exact same drivetrain as the M4A2, which used dual diesel engines. They have the signature exhaust on the M4A2 as well as on the M10. The M10A1 featured the drivetrain of the M4A3, which was powered by the GAA V8. However, not many M10A1s were produced, as the hulls were then snatched up and turned into M36 Jacksons. If you look on top of the exhaust manifold, you have two radiators on either side. This was also another feature that is found on the M4A2. Moving to the grab hook and the taillights, we could see that the one is red and the other one is blacked out. This is common on all World War II USAFV, and are again shrouded in metal brush guards. As I mentioned before, all these parts are found on the EastCoastArmory.com product line. Moving our way to the rear deck of the vehicle, this here is the travel lock. If you notice, the travel lock has a small canvas rest for the gun so it doesn't mar up the barrel. There's a tow cable lock. It's full functional. Over here we have the tank's fuel and liquid fuel cap covers. They're all chain secured and they're all functional. The fuel caps themselves are all made out of turned aluminum and are left unpainted because they would be the natural color on the real vehicle. Tank's engine grill, or engine hatch, has replaced grill work. The original grill work was molded in plastic. The grills were removed and new slats were put in their place. This is all hand fitted and is all fabricated out of brass that's soldered together. On the reverse side of the vehicle, we have here the foul weather driving hood mounting rack. On all USAFV, they had a special hood that would mount to the hatch area that would be deployed in bad weather so that the driver could see where he's going. This was a window with a windshield wiper mounted into it, as well as a canvas hood over it so that it would keep the driver nice and dry. Moving to the rear, we have the rack. On this rack here, we have all the track grousers fitted. They are just pressed on. They are not mounted on permanently. Prior to shipping, they will be removed and bagged with the others.